Time for another bulb log video diary garden walk. A few weeks after the last one, but things are moving so quickly that I need to look and see. As I suggested, this one will look at some of the erythroniums over here in a minute. But just before I go, in a way, summing up the garden in miniature, how we plant the garden, is this little raised bed, which is full of little bulbs at this time of year. All sorts, so there's muscaris, there's forms of anemone ranunculoides, these mutant forms, multiple petals. There's anemone nemorosa, not nemorosa, blanda, and all sorts. And it just sums up the planting of trying to carpet the ground with bulbs and other plants, punctuating that by pushing up through and flowering above it. And very typical if you look at the wee anemones and then come down and look at my dandelion, very similar flower structures. And the odd dandelion are typical of the relaxed attitude I've got to plants that many would call weeds. They're fine plants that attract pollinators and the wildlife. The birds love them. The goldfinches love to peck just as the flowers go over to go in and get the seeds. This is another of the beds, crevice bed with all sorts of little alpines underneath, and at the moment it's covered in this wee viola with the dark leaves and the dark flowers. And that's just absolute bliss. As you can see, there's erythroniums poking through. So this is a self-seeded hybrid of revolutum. Put itself in there. There's other things that go in that I won't leave. This Bowles golden grass is happy across the garden, but in a raised bed situation it needs to come out, so we'll just haul that out now. The wee viola comes, and you occasionally get slightly different colour changes. So typical of seed raised. But if we come round to the Erythronium bed at this end, the Erythronium tuluminensis and these earlier ones flowered. Again, we've got an anemone carpeting over to give ground cover even in the bed. If we go over there, that one with the fine leaf, that's a self-sown, that's escaped, that's out not in the plunge bed but in the bed beyond, as is that one rising up through the Haberlia. Coming along here, some of my own hybrids that I haven't named but I've selected. This lot, partly because they flower later. You'll see if I look there, just going over, that's Craigton Cover Girl. It's just past its best just now. The flowers are just starting to really go past. Whereas this group are just coming out. And the other thing that's interesting about them is that the flowers bunch together towards the top of the stem. So you've got a cluster of 3 at the top and 1 down below, and depending on the maturity of the bulb that can vary from, but there's nearly always, when it's mature and growing well, you get a cluster of 3 flowers and often a 4th just down below. They've got attractive leaves, and I just really can't decide which is the best of them. I haven't named or released any of them, they're just, that's it. But this year, if I get round to going into them, I may send a few bulbs away to certain select people to see how they get on with them and see if they want to. But if I do that, I really need to put a name to them. But going across, you can see this bed had the Corydalis in it earlier. Its Corydalis is starting to seed around. Here we've got more cover girl, Erythronium Craigson cover girl. This is another hybrid. And then, well, that's it. That's the pink one's a Revolutum hybrid, and beyond that, that's Joanna. That's the Trillium Anemone Revolutum hybrid. Not mine, but it's raised and named after Joanna Almond, formerly Joanna Almond. Of course, she's now married with another name, but daughter of John Almond of Jacques Amand International, the bulb seller. That's a nice tall, I think. Well, that's an Oregonum. So let's move round and see. We'll go around the garden, and I think we'll probably end up over there by the greenhouse in that bed. But down here we've got the Erythronium White Beauty. Outstanding plant. Been around for a long time. And if you've got White Beauty and you've got Revolutum in the garden and the seed around, you're going to get an interesting range of hybrids. So this bed's becoming a jungle. You can see some of the taller pagoda type Erythroniums in there. The Fritillaria imperialis are all over it, and I see some of the flowers turning sharply upright, which makes me optimistic I might get a good seed crop on them this year. Round here there's all sorts of little, very distinct Erythronium revolutum. I'll show you more of that further up the garden. There's a white Fritillaria meleagris. Down here, again a self-sown seedling. It's a Hendersoni, either just a straight Hendersoni or a hybrid. It's difficult to tell. But through the jungle of Dicentra, you get some of the taller Erythroniums flowering. The Trilliums are very happy to push up and flower there as well. So we've got different Trilliums. So arrange the seed around and the hybridize. So there's, you see two different. Sorry, I'm going to have to put up with the aeroplanes coming in. I seem to have picked the time when there's a cluster of planes coming into the airport. The airport's actually about 7 miles to the north of us, but we're right on the flight path. So if we go further up here, we'll come up to the Trillium grandiflorum, roseum, the Gothenburg pinks. I have a little group of them there. And then if you cross that and have that around and you've got the ordinary grandiflorum, you'll get sort of rosy colours. You'll get a whole range. Here we've got albidum. Grandiflorum seedlings. As you can see, they're well adapted to and happy to grow through with the Dicentra. And as you look through, you'll see all sorts of other trilliums growing along there. The new foliage on the epimedium is always stunning. Well, there is one flower. This is Fritillaria affinis, the yellow form. There was quite a little clump of them there. There's only one flowering this year. When they flowered last year, they were into a dry spell, and I think the bulb didn't build big enough. So next year we'll hope for a better flowering. But here you can see how different seedlings do. There's the Trillium grandiflorum with a dusky pink. And here we have it in its typical form, pure white. Excuse me, I think I'm going to sneeze, unless I can stem it off. Another group of just seedlings, so seeded off. I'll sometimes get a clue from what they are from inside, difficult to say. But they're all welcome. More trilliums. And so this is another wee bit, all self-seeding here into the gravel. And this is, again, that little Erythronium revolutum. It's very distinctive in the garden. And it's growing alongside Erythronium elegans. And the pair of them get on so well, they've started to hybridize, and we're getting little hybrids between them. And there, look, there's interesting on that one, there's a shield bug. Looks like it might just be hatching, or just have recently hatched. So we get these little colonies. Little colonies, I say, they're extending quite rapidly. But it's a much smaller Erythronium revolutum than normal. Here's one of the bigger, more robust. It's usually hybrids often have a vigor that the species doesn't share. Here's the Erythronium, rejuvenating the Erythronium bed. Anemone blanda. You'll get an idea of how I like to draw and paint in the garden. So I just planted some of these anemone blandas out last year, and you'll notice that I put them in almost drawing a line across there to jump across the path to this group that are self-seeded over here. And so it looks like a naturally spreading colony. In this bed, we were looking at the Jeffersonias and that the other day in the last video. There's the Jeffersonias now, really good foliage growth. I mean, that's a lot of vegetative growth because we've had cool, moist weather. The Erythronium americanums have all come and gone. They did open in a few days, but the light wasn't suitable and I just didn't have time to get out and run a video on them. More forms of Anemone nemorosa, so a nice bit large flowered violety blue form, and over there the multiplex. Rhododendron dendrocaris starting to go past now. Up in this bed we've still got a few Erythronium sibericums. Down there some Trillium hibersoni and Brevali. It's just as I showed in the starting sequence on the bed up there, how it's a carpeted planting with things that come up and grow through it, and we really try and extend that all over the garden. Here's some of the, we've got a lot more sanguinaria around the garden, but there's some just poking up through there. Sanguinaria canadensis. But just allowing the plants to do their thing for the most part. Being relaxed. So we've got digitalis here. They're just the foxglove, which will give us flowers when all these other early bulbs and plants have gone down, and they'll come up. So as long as they're not growing right in the middle and suppressing those plants, I'm quite happy to leave them. This is a wee self-sown rhododendron. First year it's flowered. Quite nice. So it looks like it's got campylagynum in it. Probably come from that one up there. You can see the yellow one up there, so it's probably a seedling off of that. Up here there's plenty going on. There's orchids coming through, the Dactylarrhiza orchids. Looking very healthy at the moment, so fingers crossed they stay healthy. Large chunk of the Erythronium Creighton cover girl. And this was a colony of the little dark Erythronium I was telling you about. Originally seed came from Lake Cowichan area of Vancouver Islands. We got seed 40 years ago, and I can still identify its progeny in the garden. There we can see the double forms. There's a nice Primula marginata there, and above it the green of the Rhododendron kamchatensis, which is running about nicely in there, and it's running through the moss and under the rocks, escaping from the bed on the top, choosing to where it wants to grow. The multiplex of the wee anemone, quite a sweet wee thing. I don't usually go for multiplexes, but that's quite a nice wee thing. Down there a nice grouping, Trillium rivale and Trillium, what is it, Chloropetulum or Kurubiashi, or one of that lot. Garden hybrids of that group. And the raised up level there, where we've raised the wall, to give you a feeling of height. It gives you a lovely way to see these Anemone nemarosas standing proud. And down here, just some of the many. If I come right in here, you can see the tiny seedlings. This year's seedlings and all the other years that will give us future generations. Going right up in there. More Anemone blanda. Repeating plants around the garden is good for continuity. So this is another colony that's predominantly that little Vancouver Island form of Revolutum. I'm quite sure if you wanted you could name it a subspecies, because it does seem to stay fairly distinct. The only thing I know for sure it crosses with is Erythronium elegans. And you'll see the difference as I move round the path over there. These are when we get to some of the other collections of Erythronium revolutum we brought into the garden. Here we have, this is the area where I originally found those hybrids I showed you in the bed down there with the bunch flowers, the 3 flowers bunched at the top. This is the area where I originally found them, and obviously there are still some left in here. You can see them distinctly from the leaf, and then very clearly from the way the flower is bunched at the top. And also the fact that it's just coming out when many of the others are starting to go over. But just look at the range you get, allowing them to do their own seedy thing. I see a lot of Gallium ardvensi in there. We call it sticky willy in Scotland. I think we call it cleavers or whatever the local name for it is. It gets everywhere. You just have to get in and haul it out before it starts seeding. But this, from the colour of the leaf and the flower, this is Trillium ovatum. There's more grandiflorums in there. It's just such a time. Mid-April to mid-May is the peak flowering time for us in the Erythroniums. It'll depend. There's a lot of the Scotland to the west and the UK down south, and they're having really hot weather just now. We are not. It's not that hot. It's pleasant for us, but it's not hot. And there is a dampness in the air because we're getting the har. I'm feeling the actually spots. Although it's not raining, there's moisture hanging in the air, coming in off the sea. Down there again, the relaxed attitude of the Erythroniums and the dandelions. I mean, what's wrong with a dandelion? Except they get everywhere if you let them, but just once the flowers go over, just pluck off the stem. So one plant I would say deadhead. Down here in the path as well I can see that's Gallium odoratum, as opposed to the its bigger bully boy, because ardvensi, which is a sticky willy. That one I'm quite happy to leave. In fact, we introduced it to the garden. More trilliums seeding around, and all these Erythroniums self-seeded into the path. That's a rhododendron faberi that's, I'm not sure what to do there because it's really pushing out into the path. We have to squeeze by it, but it's difficult to know what to do because that kind of rhododendron, you can't cut it back, and you can cut it back, but it won't regenerate. It won't bud back. Close to seagulls calling next door shows the closeness to the sea. But the seagulls are nesting for the second year on next door's chimney. Excuse me. The majority of these, well, I'm saying the majority, just about all of these Erythroniums that I'm showing you that are in the path are self-seeded. These in the foreground originally was self-seeded because Erythronium creating cover girl. Way back in the days when the The late great Alistair McKelvey was the editor of the Scottish Rock Garden Club journal. We wrote an article on the garden, I think it was, for him, and he chose for the cover picture this Erythronium, a close-up of this Erythronium. And when he was getting it, he chose that as a cover picture. So he phoned me up and said, "You've got to, what's this one called?" And I said, "It's just a seedling that I've selected as a good seedling." He says, "You'll have to give it a name. I need a name for it because it's going on the cover." So I said, "Okay, let's call it Craigton Cover Girl." Craigton because we put Craigton on all our plants, and Cover Girl obviously because it was on the cover, and hence that's why it's called Craigton Cover Girl. But I just seen around here I know I was here a minute ago, but I just seen a pretty juxtaposition from if we come down here, Erythroniums on the ground with the Solmisia hectori, the silver Solmisia, and then you come up to this lovely Primula marginata, and then up above that where the Erythroniums were in this little Trillium rivalis. But let's head on. I would have gone round that path, but I can't because it's too overgrown with Erythroniums round there. It's a narrow back path, so there's no slabs, it's just gravel. So this is the area where all the early stuff's going. The primroses, they're still been a good year for primroses. They've done well, and I've got good seedlings coming. Definitely spotting a rain now, which is good. I'm glad we get some rain. And I'm making this more and more planted with wildflowers. So we've got Myrtus odorata, so the sweet Cicely. And we've got oxeye daisies I've planted in here. And of course we've got the Anemone nemorosa proper, seed collected from the wood. Daffodils just hanging on, the big bluebell is just coming out. Here's some seedlings of primrose, a few that I pricked out. Here's a pot of seedlings that I'll probably grow there for a bit and then just prick them directly into the garden later if it stays damp. This is the other path that I really can't go round, all the seedlings of Erythronium. There is a little trail up the middle where we walk, and round here to a very typical area of the garden. The primrose yellow anemone cross pallidor or seemanii, whatever you want to call it, the hybrid. We've got the hybrid between Primula veris and vulgaris. We've got the Primula vulgaris over there. You've got the Primula veris and vulgaris there. And then all the Erythronium seedlings all over the place. So a nice place to finish. The rain's starting to come in. So I think that's good for me to finish here. And say goodbye to you. Thank you if you stayed with me. I really do appreciate it. There's no point in me doing these videos if you're not going to watch them and enjoy them as well. So thank you very much for being with me. And I'll be back when there's something else that looks worthy of sharing with you. But for now, take care and enjoy your gardens, as spring will soon turn in towards summer.